ISIS is now claiming responsibility for the attack.
The Islamic State has just claimed responsibility.
The latest we've just heard is that Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack.
ISIS claimed responsibility for the New Year's Eve massacre.
ISIS claimed responsibility for both of today's blasts.
ISIL's weak. I know it doesn't look like that right now.
No, it doesn't, does it, Waleed? In fact, since Waleed's famous video went to air nearly 2 years ago, the terror threat in most Western countries has risen or remained high, due largely to the probability of a terrorist attack being carried out by Islamic State or their supporters. If we are going to be brutally honest, far from being weak, the world hasn't seen an ideology as dangerous or so hell-bent on world domination since the Nazis. And we all know how much pain and suffering they inflicted on the world. To be fair, there is some justification for what Waleed said. The evidence shows that at least some of the atrocities attributed to Islamic State have not been funded, planned or carried out by them. The thing that Waleed conveniently overlooks, though, is that a majority of these attacks are very much inspired by the terrorist organisation.
The male caller told a 7 News employee this is for IS.
It is important to understand that Waleed is a Sunni Muslim. Sunnis make up roughly 85% of the world's Islamic population. They are also responsible for the majority of Islamic terror attacks. Given that Waleed has a PhD in global terrorism, this is a fact that he would be well aware of, so it's fairly safe to assume this makes up at least part of the reason why Waleed so strenuously denies the very obvious connection between Islam and terrorism, as he has a duty to protect Islam. This is known as...
This concept called al-taqiyya. Al-taqiyya means prevention. So a Muslim is allowed to lie to prevent harm that may come to him or to Islam.
As you just saw, Waleed is not only permitted to, but is obligated to lie to protect Islam. Before we go any further, it would be remiss not to point out that we are in no way suggesting that Waleed supports or condones any form of terrorism. It must be noted, though, that Waleed is in a position where he has tremendous influence and power, due not only to his career in the media as well as other industries, but as a leader in the Islamic community. It must also be noted that someone who wields such influence, if they really wanted to, could very publicly denounce Islamic terrorism. Unfortunately, Waleed has failed to do this on numerous occasions, making all manner of excuses instead, like for instance when he described Islamic terrorists as lone wolf actors or the innocuous. He has even called terrorism a perpetual irritant. He has the platform and the tools he needs to publicly call on his fellow Muslim leaders to expose the extremists in his religion. But sadly, Waleed chooses not to use his position to do this. Rather, he prefers to attack people who are trying, rightly or wrongly, to keep Aussies and our country safe.
So if you're a Member of Parliament, or a has-been Member of Parliament, preaching hate at a time when what we actually need is more love...
Waleed thinks that we as Australians need to show more love and be more accepting of foreign cultures, even when they openly tell us how much they despise us and our Western lifestyles. That is why it is Waleed who is the weak one, not Islamic State. He denies that Islam is the problem and instead insists that Western societies must change their approach towards the imported Muslim culture, not the other way around. He continues to do this even though he knows that innocent people, including his fellow Muslims, are being slaughtered in the name of Islam.
All 84 people killed in the Bastille Day truck attack in Nice have now been identified. Around 30 of them were Muslim.
So if you ever see this video, Waleed, it has been nearly 2 years. You are wrong. Islamic State have proved they aren't weak. Therefore our message to you is, it's time to man up, to stop blaming everyone else, and show the world that you are brave enough to admit there are some very real problems in your religion. Once you stop hiding behind the thinly veiled bullshit that you espouse and start being honest, it will give you the opportunity to at least attempt to make a real difference and be part of the solution, because we only need to look at Britain to see what the alternative is.
British Prime Minister Theresa May said it was time to say enough is enough after Islamist terrorists struck again at the heart of the country's capital.
make sure you check us out on Facebook. Stand up for Australia.